Okay, so this video is going to be a little bit different than some of the ones that I've done in the past, but it's going to tie together some of the subjects that I've covered in those videos. So some of the first videos I did were regarding timing luck, whether in investing or distribution strategies, and a lot of the videos I've done have a lot to do with how do we evaluate the advice from people like Dave Ramsey, personal finance gurus and other people that have a large following. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to watch a couple of minutes of a video that they did recently on a radio call-in, a specific example of some advice that Dave gave somebody. And I'm not just going to blindly nitpick some of the things that Dave says. I'm actually going to tell you why and show you a real-world example of why what he says is somewhere between flippant and, in one case, irresponsible. And then at the end of the video, I'm actually going to talk a little bit about why, if you have a personal financial advisor, the advice that you give from them is a lot of times going to be different from what you'd get if you called somebody like a Dave Ramsey. And I'm going to hopefully give you that perspective of why it would actually be a little bit different. So right now, let's go take a look at the video. Okay, so we're going to watch this video together, and I wanted to watch the video and not quote from it because I didn't want anything taken out of context. I wanted you to see what it was exactly said during the video, just so that it didn't look like I was trying to make something out of nothing here.
He asks, I'm 72 years old and my wife is 70. We're both in good health. We have a combined retirement and Social Security income of about $140,000 a year. We own our home outright and have no debt. We have about $100,000 in Roth and $1 million in traditional IRAs. Our wonderful financial advisor is recommending a distribution of no more than 4%. We're looking at about 5% to enable us to travel while we're able to. What is your recommendation on the maximum annual distribution? It's a great question, and they're in a good spot. And so this makes me feel better about saying, sure, $40,000 versus $50,000 on the distribution is what they're really asking, right?
It's not George's money. He doesn't care. He feels good about it all.
On, let's say, the $1 million in traditional IRAs, that's going to be taxable. This doesn't feel like a big portion of the world if they've got, the $140,000 income.
So if the money is invested in good mutual funds.
Dave never specifies what good mutual funds are. He likes to quote 11 and 12% returns. He also likes to say it's easy to pick funds that beat the market, even though it's provably false. But let's let him go on here.
Average market returns of 11%, 12%. Why can you only take out 4%?
Just fear, I think, is the main reason people do it.
Why would the financial advisor say that?
He gets more money? Is that how that works?
Possibly.
All right, so keep in mind that Ramsey Financial Solutions actually markets to financial advisors, and they send leads to financial advisors, some of which pay in excess of $12,000 a year to buy the leads from Ramsey Solutions, but those advisors don't actually do that. It's only potentially this advisor that the caller asked about.
Or possibly he is a financial planning lemming. You know what a lemming is?
That's an old school word.
These are small
George doesn't know what a lemming is, but go on.
Rats that run in herds and follow each other over cliffs.
That is the funniest way I've heard to describe financial advisors.
And so, meaning you go along with the crowd. You go along with the crowd. You go along with the crowd. You don't even ask why. You just go along with the crowd. And so you don't want to be sheeple. So here's the thing. That is a standard thing in financial planning, 4%. Because after inflation and after poor rates of return on the portfolio, you're still going to be okay at 4%. But by God, 5%, you're going to sink.
We'll talk a little bit about the 4% rule after this video is over, but there are actually instances where you would have sunk it doing that. So,
which is completely asinine. This is ridiculous.
There's
obviously, Steve, you are smarter than your financial advisor. You have more money than he does. And you've done a better job than he has. So you can kind of tell him what to do with your money. Be real comfortable doing that. And dude, if you want to pull out 6%, it's okay with me. I think you're going to be okay. If you want to pull out 10%, you're not going to destroy the portfolio.
All right. I can handle 5. I can maybe even handle 6 for a 72-year-old, but when we get to 10, come on.
Dude, you're 70. What are you going to live to? 170? You're not going to wind this thing down in 25 years. You're not going to tear the principal up in 25 years even doing that.
All right, so we'll get to some examples after this, but I wanted you to see the video. So a brief aside before we get to the actual examples of different withdrawal rates during different time frames. On this channel, there's actually 3 videos that are specifically about timing luck, and you can watch those if you go to my channel page. Also on the website, within the courses, within the retirement planning courses, there is a video that delves deeply into the mechanics of safe withdrawal rates, and it actually talks a little bit about the 4% rule. And the 4% rule, without without belaboring it and going too far into the nitty-gritty, it comes from a Bill Bengen study where he looked at a 50-50 portfolio of stocks and bonds and said, if you go through a 30-year retirement, this is the highest withdrawal rate you could have ever used and never run out of money. Now, he didn't say that was the right portfolio, and he didn't say that was the right withdrawal rate either. He just said that in those specific scenarios, that's what applied. So in some cases, if you watch those videos, what you'll see is that there are actually times when you could have withdrawn 10 or 11% from your portfolio and never run out of money, and there are times that you had to withdraw only 4. The problem is that you don't know that in advance, and I'm going to show you what that looks like here with a couple of examples. Okay, so I don't want to spend a bunch of time on this because there's plenty of other videos on the channel and on my website about this, but I want to prove to you why a 6% withdrawal rate without any sort of worry over a 2+ decade span is not necessarily a good idea. And I'm going to show you a couple of different reasons why. So in both of these examples, the Vanguard Balance Indexed Admiral Fund is going to be the purple line, and the S&P 500 Total Return Index is going to be the orange line. That's not the S&P 500 Index Fund, that's the index itself, just to be very specific about that. In the first example here, you'll see the Vanguard Balance Index Fund from March of 2000, and yes, I did cherry pick that date. Some people actually retired on that date, and that's why this matters. And in the second example, I'll show you the same thing. So if you look at this time frame, you can see a 6% withdrawal rate starting out in March of 2000 would have run you out of money with a Vanguard Balance Index somewhere in 2019. So you made it 19 years. 19 years for a 72-year-old might be pretty long, might not be. Probably got a lot of people a lot closer than they think. If you're actually invested in something that looked more like the S&P 500, which is actually the kind of fund that you'd need to invest in to get the kind of returns that Dave quotes at 11% per year, you would run out a lot faster. This says 2014, but that's the index itself. The fund that invests in the index would have run out of money a little bit quicker. Now I'm going to show you also a quick example of a 10% withdrawal rate, just in case you wanted to see it. All right, so like I said, very briefly, if you look at a 10% withdrawal rate, which under almost any scenario is pretty egregious, you can see in the Vanguard Balanced Index Fund, you would have run out of money in late 2009. You didn't make it 9 years. The S&P 500 would have run out of money in 2008. The fund itself, I've run these same numbers, runs out of money in late 2007. So you're talking about a 10% withdrawal rate running out of money potentially in as early as 7 to 9 years. So I think we can at least agree that 10% is not what we're looking for here. Okay, so we're going to wrap up this video with a few separate thoughts, some of them being about the commentary Dave made, and then a lot of it being about why you actually hear different things from a specific financial advisor that you work with versus a financial media personality. So I think we can agree, at least from showing the examples, that a 10% withdrawal rate, unless you think somebody is going to die in the next 10 years, unless they've been diagnosed with a terminal illness, is probably not the right strategy for them. But I think it also speaks to a lot of the misconceptions that the average person maybe has about average rates of return and safe withdrawal rate. So I want to go through this example just really briefly here so that you can understand withdrawal rates in a little bit different context. So a lot of people think, well, I make 11% on average in a portfolio. Why could I not withdraw 11% from that portfolio over time and end up with the same amount of money? Well, the reason is that you don't get average returns every single year. You get them over time. And so if you get, for example, 22% in 1 year and 0% the next year, your average return in those 2 years is 11%. But in 1 year, you would have taken out money from your portfolio and you ended up with more money. In the other year, you would have taken out money and you would have ended up with less because you didn't have any return. And in years where your return is negative, you're not putting money back in the portfolio. The other thing that you have to understand about safe withdrawal rates is when somebody says a 4% safe withdrawal rate, they're saying a starting number. So $1 million, you start with a $40,000 withdrawal. You don't take 4% out every single year. You take a starting withdrawal rate of 4% and you inflate that up over time. So in the second year, that withdrawal rate might end up being 3%. It might end up being 7%, just depending on what the portfolio did. So when you hear that withdrawal rate number, you have to understand that's just the starting number. It's not saying you're taking out that specific percentage every year, because if it was, you could never run out of money taking out 4% unless you lost a catastrophic amount in your portfolio. So don't misunderstand what withdrawal rates are, and don't conflate average rates of return with the rates of return you get in every single year, because that can be a huge mistake as far as retirement's concerned. And this kind of gets to a little bit more of the nitty-gritty of why you hear different things from people like a Dave Ramsey versus a financial advisor. So one of the things maybe a lot of people do know, maybe they don't know, is Dave Ramsey is not licensed like most financial advisors are, and he's not required to be. There's some sort of exemption for media personalities, partially because of the platform that they give advice on, but also because of the fact that they're not technically in the business of giving advice. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, in order to actually have to be licensed based on the 1940 Investment Advisors Act, you have to actually be in the business of giving investment advice on securities. And Dave's always really careful not to mention specific securities. That's why you always hear him talk about quote unquote good mutual funds. But the other thing is that people aren't paying him directly for the advice that he's giving. They are essentially earning money through Ramsey Solutions, and they're earning money through advertisers. So among those advertisers, like a timeshare exit strategies company that he worked with several years ago that he's now being sued for because it's alleged that he took money from this company and they scammed a bunch of his listeners. So he makes money through advertisements. He makes money through things like Financial Peace University. He makes money through classes for people to become licensed Ramsey coaches. He makes money through advisors who, like I said in a previous part of this video, pay him for leads to his clients. And so because he's not directly being paid for the advice itself, he's exempted from certain rules. Now, I don't think for 1 second that people call on his show and ask him for advice that they don't think he's speaking directly to them, but he's not held to the same standard that I would be if I spoke to you in our office. So that's where the big difference lies, is that people who are on talk shows and other media, other types of media, can give you advice or work around advice, essentially, that's based on rules of thumb, that's based on averages, that's based on a lot of things that they can't ever be held up to account for. Whereas if I, as an advisor, meet you personally, I am vested in your life. And the idea that I could just give you generic advice based on long-term averages without any concept of what the consequences are if things go wrong, that I don't explain those consequences to you, that I don't build in some sort of cushion so if things go wrong you're still going to be okay, that's just not the way that things work. You know, financial advisors are personally vested in their clients' well-being, and as a result of that, a lot of times you are going to see advice that's maybe a little bit more conservative coming from a financial advisor, and you don't have to go the route that Dave's buddy George went there and say, well, it's because they're greedy. Well, that doesn't have anything to do with it. Do I think 4% was the right rate of withdrawal for that 72-year-old? I don't. I wouldn't have given that advice. I think it was likely pretty low. Frankly, I don't know everything about this scenario, so it's impossible to say. But chances are a 4% recommendation is a lot better than 10%. So think about that when you're getting advice, whether you're getting it specifically from an advisor or if you're getting it from a more generic source, maybe more of a national media type source, because the standards we're all held to are a little bit different in this game. You need to be able to take those types of things in context if you want to understand the information that's being given to you. Now, if you thought that this was helpful, like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you didn't think it was helpful, find that blue unsubscribe button or the pink never subscribe me to this channel button below and make sure that you don't watch any more of these. Otherwise, feel free to leave a comment and let's continue this conversation about this topic or any others that you're interested in.